So, as I mentioned in part 1 of Star Citizen Sunday, there was a lot of information that came out this week, and with being away over the weekend, I didn't have a chance to get it all into the first part. So, to come is the letter from the chairman, which is to do with the Star Marine update and explaining the reasons why we have not seen Star Marine yet. So, it's quite an important letter. Also, we had the Genesis StarLiner Concept Sale, plus sort of a deep dive document on how passenger transport will work within Star Citizen. Very exciting stuff, very in-depth, but I'm going to get the letter from the chairman out of the way first so we can understand why the FPS module is not out yet. So, as we all know, Chris has been in London for the past 10 weeks directing the performance capture shoot. He says there's 1 week of the last unit shoot to go, and he says the stories and characters written by David Haddock and William Wiseborn really come to life. The cast they've put together for Squadron 42 would not be out of place in a major motion picture. They say they're using next level performance capture. You can really see emotion or the nuance and subtlety which has never been seen in a full player controlled gameplay before. And instead of watching a film play out in front of you, it feels like you are inside a living world, living the story that only you see on a big screen. And he says, but it's your story. But he mentions that he needs now to step away from Squadron 42 and address Star Marine. And he goes on to explain it's pretty much 2 months late. And within this post he says he will answer why. So it starts off with the first question being, what issues are the FPS team facing? And he mentions that for certain reasons they feel the current build of the FPS module does not live up to the standards they want to achieve with Star Citizen. He said the issues are a mix of technical blockers and gameplay issues. Most significant is the network backend, meaning they have to develop the generic instance manager, which is what's responsible for all the game servers, and rewrite both the matchmaker and the game launcher from scratch, which obviously takes additional time. Now, the general instance manager will be tested next week, apparently. It's got a new matchmaking system, which he says will guarantee finding a match, so you won't ever get cannot find match or kicked from match, and it's currently integrated but undergoing testing. So gameplay wise, they say that they want the visuals right. They don't want the animations to be fake, so basically anything you do in first person needs to look correct in third person and also by another player. But as these issues are being tackled, the FPS team is continuing to improve other areas beyond the initial spec, so what they first set out to try and achieve. Because they are now waiting for these issues to be fixed, they're able to get more polishing done. He mentions that new characters and new weapons and also newly recorded mocap animations going on a regular basis, and they're also working on more subtle map changes. They say additional lighting and detail passes on Gold Horizon, so for example quick silhouette reads and trying to make it easier to understand where you are within the level. And what he says, which I think is quite an important little quote, is they want a build which shows us where they want to go and not what they want to achieve before the clock runs out, which I think is a really good way of putting it. Obviously without having a publisher or working for a publisher, we don't have to wait to put out stuff when he says. So the next question he answers is, what does the FPS issues mean for the status of the rest of the project? You say only 15% of the team is working on Star Marine. It says progress has continued in all other areas of Star Citizen, while issues with the FPS has only stalled development there. However, they say progress is still ongoing for the FPS while the back-end stuff gets worked on. Now, he says he doesn't want to say there is no impact on the rest of the project, but integrating the FPS properly will really help move Star Citizen forward, as it is quite an important update. He says he cannot stress enough that the 2-month delay of Star Marine is not the same as a 2-month delay of Star Citizen, and the biggest issue is that the recent Arena Commander work has been done on the Star Marine build, which is why we haven't seen any updates recently. So going on to what's next, he says they're thinking of releasing a build with Star Marine disabled to allow us to try out some of the changes and updates made over the past few months. Now, this won't happen overnight, but it's important, they say, that they do it for testing purposes, but more to show you that they are working on what we care about. So the final important question is, when will we see Star Marine? He said he doesn't have an absolute answer. They know exactly what needs to be done and are already on the way doing it. But starting now, he says each week continuing, they will provide us with a high-level update on the challenges. And they want to rededicate a pledge that they made back in 2012. And this is to be completely open about the process. So they're going to tell us everything. In which it seems they have started keeping things secret. Whether or not they want to keep it secret to release it as a big surprise or what. But they did state during the Kickstarter pledge that they're going to be completely open with the process. So it sounds like they've wavered a bit and he's bringing that back. He did say, again, a very important quote, they cannot say they will meet every deadline they set or that we will agree with every decision, but they will keep us informed and will not stop working until it's done right. He did say at the end he will not let us down. So it kind of gives us an insight as to what we're waiting for, and in my personal opinion, they can take as long as they need to get it right. I am in no hurry. I'm obviously excited and I really want to play it, but I don't want to play, as quoted again, a buggy mess. So let me know your thoughts on this one. But anyway, let's get on to the Genesis StarLiner. So the concept sale for the Genesis StarLiner has started, and it is $400. There's a little blurb from Crusader Industries, who are the developers of the Genesis StarLiner, and it says they are proud to present the LH307 Genesis, the Galaxy's premier narrow-body Starliner chassis. As most frequently equipped, the Genesis class includes support for 40 passengers and 8 crew. A fully modular interior allows individual concerns to adapt their ships to the task at hand, with aftermarket options for everything from complete luxury-orientated staterooms to passenger-free cargo configuration. So, if you go over to the page with the sale on, they had a little feature on the page itself with a little story from someone who was trying to decide where to travel. I won't read it out because I think it's nice for people to read themselves with the background noise going on. It's as if they're trying to bring the experience of being in the Meridian Transit Terminal, which is probably where you'd go to catch a ship to a holiday destination or just going back and forth to certain systems. On the page you'll hear a voice over a loudspeaker with sort of background population. I'll try and play it in the background.
Featuring the all-new Genesis class Starliner from Crusader Industries, Meridian Transit is your choice for seeing the stars in style. The only question you have to ask is, where will you go?
And then once you get to the bottom of the page, you will come across a classic departures arrival board showing you the scheduled flights for that day. And if you click on one, a little further down the page, your Meridian Transit ticket will be filled out. And again, the loudspeaker will pipe up again, this time from the pilot of that particular flight, giving a hello to all passengers. And just like when you're on a real flight. I'll only play one so you can check them out yourself if you wish to.
Greetings, passengers. Welcome to your Meridian Transit in-system flight to Mars. We're going to be delayed just a few minutes here at the LZ, but we're going to try to make that time up as soon as we pass the moon, and we hope to have you in Port Ratanus on schedule. So just sit back, and I'll keep you updated once we reach cruising quantum speeds.
Further down, there was a postcard from the character within the story of the destination which they chose. So about the Genesis StarLiner, it says, with Neo G engines, it allows for fuel-efficient duration travel, 2 remote-operated turrets, multiple decks to support everything from first-class lounges to additional cargo capacity. So about Crusader Industries, the headquarters are located in Stanton, and it is the UEE's premier passenger freight transport development company. Crusader produce a number of other civilian passenger space frames, from small in-system commuter transports to high-capacity superliners. So it sounds like the LH307 is just sort of a mid-size liner. So the StarLiner philosophy, they wanted to introduce something new. They say a ship that doesn't naturally have an apparent style of gameplay. And they mentioned a while ago that they want Star Citizen to be a living, breathing world, which means spending resources building up ships that would exist in the real world, even when they are not combatants or adventurers, which is very, very cool. And again, I'm not all about combat. I'm not that interested in that, so things like this, it does interest me. The StarLiner, it says, is how people, NPC in real life, will or can travel in the verse. Designers have spent a long time working on the realism, everything from safety features to a plan for how to make passenger space travel fun, interesting and challenging. So moving on to potential variants, there are several different configurations, usually classified as luxury, mid-range and essential, or sort of bare bones, and this is because every StarLiner will be significantly modular, so there is no one standard example of each type. More complex models carry fewer passengers but with additional amenities like lounges, food options and personal quarters, and the essential model focuses on more bulk cargo and less crew and passenger comfort. So today's concept sale is a 40-person mid-range class. Now there's a little image of different wing paintovers for many of the private individuals who actually purchase Starliners for their own use. Usually yacht style with individual cabins. Often professional racing teams modify the interiors to store and repair racing ships like the M50. The UEE military modifies the standard space frame for roles like troop transport, patrol hunter-killer and SWAX or CNC platform, also known unofficially as Starlifter, Star Hunter or Star Seeker. And there is also an Imperator 1, which is an advanced aerospace prototype with added security and luxury features to ferry the Imperator when he is or she is travelling off-world, so very much like Air Force One. So the sale is offered to help fund Star Citizen's development, and don't forget that the ship will be available to purchase in-game with in-game credit, so if you do not want to or you cannot afford to pay the $400 like myself, then do not worry, as you can pick one up within the game. So with the concept sale, you obviously get LTI, lifetime insurance, 2 hangar flare, which is the poster and the model of the Genesis StarLiner. It is cheaper than when they release it later on, plus the industrial hangar, and all that is for $400. Quite an expensive ship, to be fair, but you've got till Monday the 6th of July to buy it if you so wish. Tell me your thoughts on this. We are going to move on to the actual passenger transport gameplay or career. It is so in-depth, you will not believe it's real. I was reading it and thinking this is a joke, but let's get on to it. So the final post this week was a design post titled Civilian Passenger Transport, and it's a unique occupation for Star Citizen. Now this is obviously tied in with the Genesis StarLiner Concept Sale, as this is how the ship will be used, and it says that Genesis StarLiner's little quote is, "Most people focus on where they want to be, we're the ones who obsess about getting you there." Now, passenger transport is about competing with other players and characters for the right to provide critical and necessary support service for the proper orientation of the entire galactic ecosystem. That was quite a mouthful. Anyway, it goes into how you would start a career as a passenger transporter, and it says it's a highly regulated activity. You've got to first obtain a license at a government office of the various landing zones which you wish to pick up or deliver passengers, and if you have no criminal record, this is apparently a painless process. So if you are interested in becoming a passenger transporter, do not kill anyone. Anyway, a recurring fee for the license is required, amount dependent on how much passenger traffic travels through that particular landing zone. Larger transporters with fuel-efficient engine upgrades and finely honed crews focus more on central traffic hubs. Smaller and less experienced operators tend to stick to lesser landing zones, and it can take a bit longer to sell out a flight. So passenger transport requires a specialised type of ship, like the StarLiner, which has been offered for concept sale. So it sounds like other ships can still do it, but the StarLiner is going to be the primary one. There are 4 classes. You've got coach, business class, first class and luxury. Many ships can support just 1 or 2 of these. And things like fuel capacity, consumable storage capacity and engine efficiency are primary as to whether a given ship is long or short range. And it says that the StarLiner is the top of the line. It's got long range, luxury ship, prodigious seating capacity, fuel efficient engines, advanced quantum stabilizer to minimise vibration nausea, private sleeping cabins and much more to remove long distance discomfort. So once a license and ship are acquired, a player needs to park on a public landing pad and initiate a connection to the local flight schedule computer to get a sense of the local passenger traffic. Destinations will be shown in order of popularity, with number of passengers which have travelled there over the last day and average price they have paid for each ticket class. You must then select the destination for your flight, set the price ticket for each class that you offer, and specify departure and estimated time of arrival. Flights can then be published, travellers can then see them and start purchasing tickets, which is very, very cool. Depending on all the above, travellers may begin to exit customs and board your ship in a trickle or in a flood. Then the pilot will receive real-time feedback as to how many tickets have been sold from their available inventory, and may change the price of the unsold tickets at any time, so you can reduce them if you have a few left and you just want to fill up, or obviously if they are selling like hotcakes, you can raise them a bit and maybe charge some more. I wouldn't recommend that, but very interesting that you can control things like this. They can also terminate a ticket sale prematurely, but cannot adjust the departure or arrival times without cancelling the flight entirely, and there will be no ticket sold after the scheduled departure time. So the real work, it says, begins once you depart, and you've got to continue non-stop until you reach the desired destination, and obviously try and get there on time. So, reputation. This directly impacts 2 things, which is whether your license is revoked or not, and also how much of a discount you can charge or earn compared to your competitors. Reputation is measured via how well travellers are being safely delivered to their destination and overall satisfaction. Every passenger's ticket class directly impacts how forgiving they are in evaluating. So obviously satisfying a more demanding client will require more than just desired seating, comfort and amenities. Higher ticket purchasers expect superior service, higher quality food and drink, greater entertainment options, prompt medical treatment and better facility access. And how these are met will determine how your player's reputation or how your reputation will be given. So I think that's quite important. Obviously, they did say that reputation itself will play within the persistent universe, and if your reputation determines how well you do in it as a business, then obviously it's quite important. So the next few parts are what's available on board of the Genesis StarLiner, and it starts with the ICES, which is the Information, Communication and Entertainment System. And it says it's a computer centerpiece for the passenger's flight. It allows them to order food and drink and engage in various forms of entertainment. Every seat on the passenger flight is equipped with a holographic projector in the ceiling above and is tied to the ICES blade in the hardware room at the back of every ship. They will on occasion fail, as they do in real flights, and it's important to quickly resolve the problem. It says a burnt out failure will require ejecting and replacing with another, provided you remember to get enough stock before the flight. Excessive radio interference may prevent a solid COM data link. A player must then match the set of binary filters to a hexadecimal status code quickly, of course. Also, recalibration of a misaligned audio processor would require pressing a sequence of 8 buttons associated with musical notes to match a test melody whose length is determined by the extent of the failure. Who the hell comes up with this? And then soldering a loose connection can remedy a contact failure. So all this sort of stuff, this is where I thought, is this real? It is so in-depth just to make sure that this device works properly. Now, I've never questioned Star Citizen ever, and I still believe it'll happen, but something like this seems so in-depth that how can this happen within the universe? I truly hope so, and I don't think they would say it or mention it if they didn't think it was possible, but that is in-depth. So, the next part is about the Mixmaster, and this is for mixing drinks. So, passengers can key their order through the ICES, and then it'll explain to you how to mix the drinks for the passengers. Now, we won't go into too much detail about it, but basically you've got to mix the right amount of beverage to get it right, and you have all these different buttons, and you can press each one to make the particular drink. It tells you the passenger's order, the seat number, and time remaining before the passenger pretty much gets pissed off for waiting too long. And also, the ships carry limited supplies of beverages, so you must get it right more times than not, otherwise you will run out of drink. So again, it sounds like a very in-depth part to just bring in passengers' drinks. So, customization and upgrades. Now, it says it supports a considerable number of potential upgrades like fuel efficiency engines, larger fuel tanks, additional storage for consumables and spare parts, quantum stabilizers, and things of a more traditional nature too. Many customization aspects will require more time and effort on the player part than simply opening their checkbooks. For example, sourcing better quality liquor for the Mixmaster will get you a higher reputation, cheaper variants, but you've obviously got to go planetside to places to get this particular liquor. Also, every passenger transport ship will have a movie bank, which is in the hardware room. It says next to the ICES blades that can store a fixed number of movies, making them available to the passenger via their projectors. So movies are classified as either classic or modern, and all have a popularity rating. Modern films' popularity decline over time, so you must consistently seek the more newer releases and update your library. Classics retain their popularity, but finding one that's popular is more difficult. Again, passengers consider the total popularity value of the movie library as well as the percentage of time they had to access it. And obviously, a malfunctioning ICES device can eradicate the benefit of a solid library when calculating the overall entertainment level of your flight. So clearly you have to pick the correct films for the passengers to enjoy, otherwise they'll slate you for it. So medical diagnosis and treatment. It says there are a wide variety of potential ailments for passengers, and each has their own symptoms. So a cough, it says, would equal sort of severe chest pains or shortness of breath. A migraine would give aversion to light. Sore necks will act as itching, and all can get worse over time. So you've obviously got to check the symptoms and think what it could mean. There is a computer with which you can input symptoms to show possible illnesses, and it says that every ship comes with at least one med supply cabinet containing sort of basic diagnostic equipment. Also contains treatments, one of which should address or alleviate every illness. But if you get it wrong, it could get worse and even death can happen. Also, illnesses can affect and spread through the cabin by way of fear or contagion. So obviously a fearful passenger will turn and look at the passenger concerning them. This in turn will affect the player's reputation, and a contagion can literally spread and disease the whole of the cabin with all hell breaking loose, which could result in a loss of license. Now, I know the medical career within Star Citizen is supposed to be quite in-depth. It sounds like this may be giving us an insight into what to expect. With the Star Marine update, it's just going to be a very basic stim pack sort of shooting your friend with a medical device to get him better, but this sounds a bit more in-depth, and it's if they're going to have it on a ship on its own, I would have thought it would actually be within the Persistent universe as well. Anyway, moving on to flight attendants. A single experienced player can handle around 20 to 30 seats alone. Any more and help will be needed, so you could have a friend on board or an NPC. And if you would like to hire an NPC, it says you've got to travel to a recruiting station, but obviously better staff will demand higher wages. Once hired, the NPC remains in the employment and on the payroll until dismissed, and it can be asked to focus on a particular area of the ship and also asked to focus on only a certain aspect of the job. Once assigned, they automatically begin to address the demands of the passengers, which is very cool. So you don't need to have friends, you just need to be able to afford staff. So once you've touched down, pilots must give the all-clear signal from the cockpit to the passengers to begin exiting. Each passenger will immediately rate your service after departing. A player may force passengers off of a ship prematurely at any public landing zone, but they will contribute the lowest satisfaction possible. And it says that 1 to 2 premature ejections can cause a license to be suspended. Once passengers are free, the pilot then can submit a new flight plan and restock the transport supplies, but you will obviously have to wait for your supplies to be loaded into your hull. This whole gameplay sounds really impressive, and again, the depth they go to, like we heard with the mining career, is extraordinary. I have every faith that they can pull it off, but things like this, making sure your ICES is fixed and working properly, or making sure the passenger gets the right drink, is it really going to play out? I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. I really hope so, and I would happily just spend a couple of hours or whatever being a flight attendant or someone on board, or even a passenger. I mean, I expect I will use passenger liners, so we will get to see some in the Persistent universe, but yeah, tell me your thoughts on it. So that was everything from last week. Lots of awesomeness to think about, and don't forget to pick yourself up a Genesis StarLiner if that sounded good to you. Anyway, I shall leave you now with the astonishing skills of me in a Hornet. Don't forget to subscribe, and I shall see you in the verse.